Hey Blenders, it's Sean here to introduce a bonus episode of ReelBlend because we have a very cool interview that we wanted to throw to you guys. Mimi Cave, the director of the new film Fresh. This is, as we've been talking about on the show, one of those projects that we really want you to go into knowing as little as possible. And so there are no spoilers in this interview for the new film Fresh, which is available on Hulu for you guys to stream right now. But, you know, it is definitely one of those projects where if you have the time, I would press play on it before you get into this interview, because, you know, we talk about some of the production values and some of the things that she did during the filming of the movie to make it a little bit more realistic. And even that's sort of tough to get into because I don't really want to give away anything about this unique and special film that made its debut at the Sundance Film Festival. If you've seen Fresh, dive right into our interview with Mimi Cave. If you have not, I would advise you go check it out, then come back here and watch or listen to our interview with Mimi, because we were thrilled to get her on the show early. I think she's going to be a voice that's going to be really well worth paying attention to based on everything that happens in this film. So without further ado, Mimi Cave on a bonus episode of ReelBlend talking about the new movie Fresh.
Mimi, seriously, thank you. Welcome to the ReelBlend podcast. We're more of a filmmaker driven podcast, so we can't stress enough, get as nerdy and as behind the scenes and inside baseball as you want to, because we're very much that kind of show. So seriously, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This is such an honor.
It's an honor for us. This is one of those interesting movies where I almost wish people would just take our word for it and go see it without knowing anything about it, because it would have so much more of an impact if you just went in blind. I understand the realism of the business and you want the studio to put a trailer out and promote the film and kind of let people know. But is there any part of you as a storyteller that just goes, just trust me, just go see it. Don't know anything about it. Don't find any, just go to the theaters and watch it.
Of course. I think that I did my best to try to hide things in the trailer that we did release, while still kind of driving excitement. So, you know, I was luckily able to be a part of that. But, you know, there's always little things that I'm like, oh, do we really have to show that? Or
so you got to be a part of the trailer. Like, that's pretty unusual, isn't it? To be a part of the promotion like that?
Well, I've heard it's unusual, but this is my first rodeo. And, so now I've been involved in this one and I can't imagine not being involved. I was day in, day out, very involved in that edit.
So maybe it's not until after the film where you stop to think about it. And, my favorite types of horror movies or scary movies are ones that come from, some grain of truth, because the more believable it is, the more credible it is, the more you think, oh, I could be in that situation. And so I played out the whole movie, and then I got to the end and I was like, wait a second, is this actually a thing? So as you researched it and as you were, getting deeper into telling the story, what did you find out about whether there's, not necessarily what we're seeing, but like a grain of some truth in this?
I think I'm glad you brought that up, because what I hope people do come away with is just sort of like a reminder and an understanding of the 1% of the 1% type of people who really have never had anyone tell them no, because they can get anything they want with a certain, dollar amount. Right. So, we did a lot of research in a lot of different avenues, and this is an original script. So there wasn't any sort of like backstory we were researching or anyone in particular. It was definitely an amalgamation of a lot of different types of real life villains that we kind of put in one category for the sake of the story. And obviously this interview is difficult because I don't want to give things away.
Yeah, true. Right.
Mimi, I want to ask you, because I'm a fan of like how movies are made. Can you talk about some of the things you used for the meat? I know it's a direct way to say it, but like there are shots of it cooked. There are shots of it like slabs on, like, it's wild to watch. But I'm just curious, like, what were some of the crazy things you used to make it look like that?
Yeah, we had, a lot of our prep was done over Zoom because we were in full pandemic when we made this movie. So we had an awesome chef who was building all of those props, if you will.
A chef. That's amazing.
And it was all about first of all, what are actors willing to eat? And what can we do to make things look like they normally do, but with just like an extra flair of grossness to them, where whether it's a glisten or a certain texture or a color, how do we bring those things to life? So we did a lot of tests with that, and our prop stylist would sit on Zoom with the chef and eat stuff in front of us and see how grossed out we would all get. But yeah, so we used like really, I mean, he got really inventive. We used a lot of like beets to, you know, have the sort of bloodiness of certain things.
Yeah.
I know we used a lot of different animal fats, so like chicken fat, and things like that just have like a natural glisten to them. But then we also added stuff on top in terms of like the shots that we knew were going to be on camera.
But they're eating these things in certain scenes. So when Sebastian or, you know, Daisy is eating it, like is it then an edible thing that tastes good? Like what were they biting into in some of those shots? Like I know you mentioned the beets and everything.
It was all edible. So he made it camera ready, but he also created it so that it had a flavor, it had a taste. Luckily, he's a real chef. He's not just like you know, a special effects person who's building stuff. But no, because we had to do a lot of takes. So there were, I think, something like 10 plates each per dish, you know. So we had them right off of set. He had them all lined up, ready to swap out. And they ate a lot. But from what I understand, it wasn't all bad. So I think
you didn't try anything? You didn't try any of it?
No, I actually, well, I do eat chicken, but I don't eat red meat. And so it's kind of funny. So I was like, how does it taste? I'll take your word for it.
Maybe I want to talk about, once I feel like I'm going to give this to every question I ask without giving too much away, the title card placement. Because it's so late in the movie that you kind of forget that you haven't seen a title card yet, or it's just not something you're thinking about. I'm curious as to when sort of that was going to when that idea started forming in your head, and if you've been able to watch this with an audience, because I'm pretty sure I let out a sound whenever the title card, because it's the perfect moment. It's the combination of, oh my God, I can't believe we haven't seen a title card yet, and what's happening in that moment. When the title card comes up, you just go, oh my God. So I'm just sort of curious the story behind that.
It's like 30 minutes in, right? Yeah.
35 minutes in. It kind of like gradually came to be. There wasn't a title sequence written into the script. So when we were shooting, I was kind of constantly thinking, like, as we were shooting and looking at the big picture of things, maybe it could go here, maybe it could go here. But I already had broken down the script enough to know that, like, after we arrive to his house, we're kind of entering a very new type of film. And we had already decided, Pavel Pogorzelski and I, the DP, that we were going to shoot everything once we got there pretty differently. Hopefully not so jarring that it felt like it was out of the same movie, but there was already kind of like a clear visual delineation. And when we were in post, that's when we decided the exact placement. But as we were shooting, we would talk to the editor and kind of like throw ideas around. And so the idea of them coming in late was always kind of there, but we didn't know how late. And we tested it in a few different spots, but that was the one where, you know, when I presented the cut to the studio, that's where it was. And I think they knew that was coming, and I was sort of like, oh, I hope they like it. So
it's perfect. It's perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. It went over well. And I'm really proud of it. I also think that, like, there's also, it gives you like a little bit of time to kind of like take a moment and be like, okay, I guess I'm entering into this new film, and let me get my head straight, because I don't know what I'm about to see.
It's that moment in a roller coaster, like right at the top before you start to plummet, like you've been climbing and there's a moment of like stillness, like right before the roller coaster goes down. That's what the title card feels like.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Mimi, so much of this is about audience reaction and how they're going to play to certain twists in the narrative. And so this premiered at Sundance, but it was a very different Sundance. I would love to know what your experience was like with it. Were you on the ground? Did you get to see it with the crowd?
No. Sundance in person was canceled. And at that point, I already knew we weren't going to be going to theaters. So I was sort of like, well, at least we have Sundance. So I will say I went through a bit of heartbreak in the beginning of the year, just because we did audience testing for this film and it really scored quite high, and we were all very excited about that. But we're in a strange world and a strange time, and to even just have a movie made and released is such a huge feat, that I honestly couldn't ask for like better partners than Searchlight, and I trust them implicitly. So it is sad that my movie and definitely a lot of other films won't be able to be seen in a big audience, but I'm hoping that people still get to watch it with friends, get to watch it with their partner, and get to still have a little bit of that glimpse.
I want to do it at one of those theaters where you get to eat while you're watching it. That just seems like a natural fit.
They have like a menu for it.
And while everyone's on a date night.
Yeah, I actually did get to see it in a theater with people when the world opened for like a week, is when we did our audience testing. So for me, it was just such a special, like rare moment. And I really just want my actors and people involved in making the film to be able to experience that as well, because it's cool.
I just hope you guys do some kind of like thing with Rotten Tomatoes. If when the reviews are fresh for it, you guys, there's gotta be some kind of like interesting thing you can play with in terms of the marketing there, because I mean the movie's awesome, so hopefully that'll be fun to play out. You mentioned your DP, who's one of the best DPs in the business. Like, he works with Ari Aster a lot. I think they did Hereditary and Midsommar, and then I loved his work on Nobody. But can you talk specifically about that choice? I mean, obviously it's your first directorial debut, so that's choosing a DP is a really big deal, and you chose an incredible DP. So how did that come about? Did you know Ari Aster through the filmmaking business?
I don't know Ari. No. I mean, Pavel has always been like someone that I've really, idolized. And I actually didn't even have him on my list because I didn't think he would want to do it.
Oh, wow.
So the script got to him through his agent, and he read it and was really into it. And we Zoomed, and it was like a pretty like great sort of like meet cute. And, I think that, because we were in a pandemic, the timing of shooting kept pushing, and he really held on. And I was sort of like dumbfounded that he believed in it so much. But in the end, it really helped me believe in the process and gave me a huge vote of confidence. And we ended up just like working so well together that I can't imagine doing anything without him now. So he's really an incredible DP, but an even more incredible person. So I was very lucky.
That'd be cool if you guys keep working together. That'd be awesome. Yeah. I love when those relationships start and just continue. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love it too.
Oh, my turn. Sorry. I'm so engaged. I'm like, I can't wait to find out what Sean asks next. You mentioned the 1% of the 1%, and there's a really great montage of the clients. So much so that every time it flashed to one, I kept thinking, like, what's their story? And when you get like enough in the frame to sort of like start the wheels turning in terms of like who these people are. I'm sort of curious, how much did you, no pun intended, how much did you flesh out like what each of their own stories were?
I had like my own little interpretation. Those characters were not written into the script. That's something that I added.
Oh, cool.
And so it was really something where I knew I wanted at some certain points in the movie, sort of a break, again, sort of like the title sequence, like you needed a moment to like see something else and be reminded of the greater world instead of just right inside of Steve's house. And so I thought that was, could be a really cool visual mechanism to tie in the greater group, and without, having to really like break into a new scene. And luckily it worked out. Yeah. But a lot of times it was things that I was taking some swings on. And I know that like in the script she kept, Lauren, who wrote the script, Lauren Kahn, she kept alluding to this other sort of like society. And we always were like, God, how are we going to represent that visually? So it came down to that.
Was there any of them in particular that you're like, I want to know what this guy's story is?
Gosh, I feel like this is a bit of a spoiler to be talking about.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I'll scale back.
I can definitely go into it. But I mean, they definitely each have their own little story. If you look closely enough, they each have an assistant. Standing next to them. And that's sort of ties into their story, and I'll just leave it there.
Oh, cool. A reason to go back and watch. So you talk about taking a big swing. This is absolutely a big swing for Sebastian. And, you know, you could play this character in a lot of different ways. So I want to know what types of conversations you guys had, because I feel like this is on me. Every time I watch him in something new, I'm reminded of how talented he is, right? And I'm always like, why do I keep sleeping on Sebastian Stan? He's so good in everything. But I just want to know about some of the choices that he wanted to bring to the character, and maybe some ways that you either encouraged him to go bigger or to reel it back.
Yeah, you know, I think like I think he's insanely talented, and I pretty much cast him off of his role in I, Tonya, which I thought he did so well. But I think that we were pretty aligned from the beginning, and we knew that we wanted to represent Steve in a way that, you know, was different from potentially other psychopath kind of like trope characters. But you realize it's really difficult because those tropes, those stereotypes all exist for reasons. And all of those characters in, you know, iconic movies in the past, all of those people did their research as well. And so you're like, oh, how do we, you know, separate? And so I think like a lot of it was in the first 30 minutes of the film, we really, I knew that we had to like make him believable as a good guy. And that was difficult. So I actually, that part of the film was more difficult in terms of tracking his trajectory as a character, to say, you know, like, remember, like you are playing a part in order to, you're sort of like a hunter after their prey. And so you're playing a part in order to get what you want. So when he was Steve, who was meeting Noah, he had to, it was like playing a role within a role.
Oh, interesting.
So weirdly, when we got to his house, he could kind of unleash and let that guard down.
Right.
It was really interesting, but he's very good at layering. He's very good at complex characters. He spent a lot of time researching serial killers and psychopaths and talking to criminal psychologists. I mean, he was so interested in getting it right. And I think he did a great job.
I think he did too.
You know, one of the things, and I don't mean this in the way that the movie is like this at all, but a tone that I kind of felt in this was kind of like American Psycho, just tonally, in terms of finding that perfect tone of like where you can be over the top, but at the same time, there's a grounded realism to it. There's a grounded emotional quality to it. And then like you kind of like push the boundaries and then you'll stay grounded. Like you found this really phenomenal tone that I think is incredibly hard to find as a storyteller. And I wonder when you're directing it, how important that tone is in your mind. I know that there's a script. I know that is all part of the story. But as you direct a scene, how important is that tone in the back of your head?
I mean, it's everything. So I think that every time I opened my mouth to make a decision, I was thinking about the tone. I knew it was going to be hugely difficult. I was constantly nervous that I wasn't going to nail it.
You did. It's a balancing act. It's a really hard tone to hit. It really is.
It's really hard. I was kept trying to look to other things to nail it correctly. And there are a handful of great films out there like that. But a lot of the time I was thinking to myself, well, how did they do that? So yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I realized before shooting, like, I think that the only way this is going to work is if we're really rooted in reality. Yeah. And that way, when we kind of like bring you into the second and third act, you are already invested in the emotional well-being of the characters. And so you kind of can more easily go on this like crazy, ridiculous ride that I'm about to take you on. So that was my hope and that was my plan. And also that we always had to believe in Noah. We always had to relate to her at every step of the way. And so her performance in being really truthful to what it would be like kind of like grounds the whole film, so that all the chaos that's happening around her, you are like, holy fuck. So
it's her and all the other characters that are in there. That to me was the grounded aspect of it. Like that was like really where it goes home and you go, oh, these are people. These are real people. Yeah.
Well, And I loved how you used technology too. Like there were so many times when I was like, there's gotta be some way that they're going to do something. And then you addressed it. Like there was always a moment where you addressed like what was happening in a modern sense. And I thought that was really smart how that played out. Sorry, Jake.
No. I had the pleasure of, since I got to watch this via screener here at home, a few friends who I live in the building with, I was like, guys, come over and watch this. And one friend of mine, when it was over, she said, well, that's it. Like, I'm going to die alone. I'm done dating. Like, that's it. Like, I'm getting off the apps. Like, that's it. I'm sort of curious. There are so many different angles, so many different conversations that this movie can bring up. But on set, how many times did it yield conversations about modern dating?
It's funny. I kind of forgot about this, and someone else asked me something similar, and I was like, oh yeah, like a lot. We all talked about it a lot, but I wasn't paying attention to that really. Like it would be between setups and stuff, talking to like our DIT or our script supervisor, and us just starting to share, bad dating experiences or experiences with people who had like, maybe a sliver of certain things that Steve has, narcissism, gaslighting, all of those things. And so, yeah, it was, I think, kind of like a constant conversation, and different scenes obviously brought up different stories for people. Luckily, no real life cannibalism. Of
the three of us, I'm the only one on the dating app. So I'm just watching this going like, oh no, like this is how it ends.
Well, me too.
Hey,
me too.
you and me.
Yeah. So it was all very realistic for me. Definitely, like I was like, trying to like tap into my own experiences a little bit. So
does it make you more I'm just jumping off Jake's question. Does it make you more hesitant now when you're on the app and you're looking at the person and you're going,
No, I mean, hopefully the message that the film, is trying to say is like this, that women are always hesitant. This is like something that we have to think about all the time. And it's just good for everyone to be aware of that. Whereas like, it's just something women carry around with them. It's a constant feeling of danger and safety. And you don't even like, it's so subconscious and default that you don't even think about it. So yeah, I think about it. I don't think about it more after this movie. Maybe I should, but I think, we're always, and I'm sure many men are the same, but with women, you're kind of always on a little bit of alert as a single woman, whether you live alone or you're walking home alone at night, things like that. They're very real dangers. So. Yeah.
So the film has 2 production stills. And so every time we write about it at Cinema Blend, we have to use one of the 2. And one is Daisy in the grocery store. And after seeing the film, I went back to it and I noticed the sign that hangs over her head that says fresh meats. So I'm just curious how often you put little nods in the production values of maybe the first half hour to say like, here's where we're going.
Yeah, I hopefully put in a lot of nods. I tried to like put in a lot of Easter eggs throughout the whole movie. Some that people will eventually see, or some that people will never understand because they're personal to me or someone in the filmmaking process. But yeah, I think like the fresh meats, that's interesting because that sign already existed in that store.
Oh, for real?
It's one of the reasons why I wanted to shoot there, because there was all this stuff already kind of like in place that we didn't need to design. And so I pressed very hard to have that location.
That's so funny. That's great.
No, it's great to talk to you for your directorial debut because, I'm excited to see where your career goes from here. And I just wonder, like, because you're coming out the gate with this film, which is awesome. Was there like in your mind before you made this movie, how did you decide this was going to be your first one? Did you have other ideas? Did you have other projects in mind? Because at the end of the day, that the first film it's now history. It's historical. It's your first movie you made. And then everything after that, people will look back at your filmography and go and look at the different films you made. Did you think about that at all? This is my first one, and this is why I wanted it to be the first one.
Getting an opportunity to direct a movie, especially if you haven't written it, is really hard. It's very competitive out there. It's very difficult to find yourself in the right, with the right people at the right moment when everything falls into place. I've been directing for 12 years. And so I've always done short form. I wanted to be in TV. I knew I always wanted to direct features, but I kind of thought it would actually be further down the road. I got this script and obviously was very excited about all the people involved in it. Read it, scared the shit out of me. Sorry, can I swear on this?
Yes, please.
It scared the shit out of me. And I just decided, what do I have to lose? I'm going to go in and give my take on it and kind of let them know how I would direct this script. And I'm so glad I did, because it just worked out and we all really saw eye to eye. And I got to be in this incredible, lucky opportunity with really awesome producers who gave me a lot of creative freedom. So I'm very, very lucky that it was my first, and very excited. I don't think that I'm ever going to think oh, I got to do another Fresh, because it's just such a unique, special script and bold story that those just don't come around that often. Yeah.
The follow-up's going to be interesting. I'm just interested to know what do you follow up with? Do you you know what I mean? It's going to be do you have any ideas out of curiosity what you want to do next?
Yeah, Daisy and I would joke on set a lot, certain scenes we would be shooting oh, today I'm eating meatballs. I'm saving the spoiler, but and she'd be like, what a crazy day. And I'm like, yeah, but tomorrow you're doing this. It's also crazy. And we would just joke we should do a period drama next. Let's just do let's just do Importance of Being Earnest, something where there's just no
we're all sitting there trying to find draw a line between the two, going, I don't know. I don't get where it came from.
I see food. Yeah. There's the connection.
Because I do think it is where do we go from here? But I'm really open to a lot of things. I love thrillers and I want to continue to do thrillers, but I also love a lot of other genres, and I'm just kind of in love with great stories. So I'm looking for my, the next thing that's going to kind of grip me the way that Fresh did.
I think the Paddington franchise is going to come around to you
after
they see Fresh.
Dude, I love the Paddington.
I do feel karmically I might need to do some,
She's going to do Toy Story 5 next or something like that. Some Pixar movie.
Yeah. And I'm still just going to sit there and be I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get the connection. Mimi, there is a shot of a meat grinder and the meat coming out of the meat grinder that very much reminded me of the shower head from Psycho. And I was wondering, okay, I'm curious, does that mean that wasn't intentional? Because it's kind of a circular meat, so that wasn't, well, okay, that's my question.
That wasn't intentional, but that's very cool. I love little things like that. Sometimes the choices we make as filmmakers are either conscious, an homage to something, or subconscious, where maybe it's built in the back of my head and I forgot about it. Or it's a cool connection that someone watching it makes that I never even knew. So I love that.
Because Sean, I feel like Sean, didn't you and I text each other about that shot?
Afterwards. Yeah, I think you texted me afterwards. Yeah. And I said, there's no way that it's an homage. And I was right. I knew the whole time.
You knew all along.
But there are a few other shots that are homages to certain films. So
can you give us one?
Oh, yeah.
Can you tease
tell us one movie, we'll look for it on the second viewing.
Weirdly enough, it's Paddington.
Let's see.
We're going to make Paddington happen.
There's only really two that are clear ones to me. One is from a little movie called The Shining.
Oh.
And one is from another small film called Silence of the Lambs.
Nice. Yeah, sure. That would make sense.
No Dr. Sleep? What the heck, Mimi? Come on. Where's the Flanagan homage?
For her next movie. All right, I'll get you out of here on this one.
Too many.
We really appreciate your time and are so happy to have you as a guest on the show. But I'm just curious, as a first-time filmmaker, as someone who's making their directorial debut, not a first-time filmmaker, you've been active in the industry. If you had a mentor that you were able to call when you were in an issue where you're just all right, I'm up against it. I need somebody to talk through. So I love reading about people who do their first films and they have to be reminded after the fact that it's tough for everybody, and it's almost like once they hear that, it's calming. So who could you turn to and just say hey, talk me through this?
Well, I'm very lucky. I was able to have Adam McKay as my mentor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
since he was a producer on this film. So I was able to call him. He was shooting his small little indie film at the time called Don't Look Up.
Fresh face cast
he would
of newcomers.
All newcomers. You never heard of him. And he would make time for me, and we would have little check-ins, and I had tons of questions for him. So he was a great mentor to me through the process, and I was able to, even just text him if I had a little like, what do I do? Kind of moment. But I will also say his producer, who is also my producer on Fresh, Kevin Messick, who does Succession and Vice and Big Short, is incredible. And he really was such an awesome partner to me, and taught me a lot about the feature space without making me feel like I didn't belong. So so I was really ushered in with awesome hands.
That's awesome. Well, we cannot wait for more people to get a chance to see this movie. And so Thank you for coming on the show and fielding our questions, and hopefully we'll get you back sometime soon.
Yeah, please. Anytime. Thank you so much.
We want to thank Mimi Cave for being a guest on the ReelBlend podcast. Make sure you guys check out Fresh. As I mentioned, it's available to stream right now on Hulu. I love when there's a movie that's readily available. You guys can pop right over to your television set, pop it on, and see what we were talking about in this fantastic interview. Thank you again to Mimi for coming by. Make sure you guys tune in to the main show that drops on Friday. We're going to have director Sean Levy returning to the show. He's going to be talking about his new film, The Adam Project, which is going to be on Netflix with Ryan Reynolds and Mark Ruffalo and Jennifer Garner. Just a really fantastic sort of, we always say this, but a throwback to the Amblin tone of those movies that we all grew up on and love. It's got some time travel and some comedy and some really, really heartfelt emotions that Sean gets into with us. And we talk a little bit about Stranger Things coming to an end as well, too. So put that one on your radar. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. Welcome to a lot of the new subscribers that we've gotten recently because you watched our Matt Reeves interview. And if you're listening to us wherever your podcast needs met, make sure you have that you've subscribed to that feed as well too, and tell a friend. Help us spread the word of ReelBlend so we can continue to grow this family out and have you people come and listen to our exclusive interviews and all the fun content that we do during the shows. So we'll catch you back here with a new episode very, very soon.